I found my son and granddaughter living under a bridge. That sentence still feels unreal, even as I say it. 3 years earlier, my daughter-in-law Amber had told me they were moving to Australia and would never come back after our fight. So when I saw that little girl in Savannah, barefoot, dusty, hugging a broken doll, it felt like the world tilted beneath my feet. I had come to Savannah for peace, for healing. After everything that happened in Chicago, my house had turned into a museum of silence. I rented a small room with a peeling balcony that overlooked a busy street. From up there, I could see street performers juggling in the square, couples holding hands, sunlight trembling on cafe windows. It was supposed to be a trip to forget, to breathe. But fate, it seems, had other plans. That afternoon I left the hotel with a paper map folded in my purse. The air smelled of roasted nuts and salt from the nearby river. I wandered into a small square where a fountain whispered over smooth stone benches. Children laughed, tourists chatted, and a saxophone played somewhere down the street. For a moment I almost felt light again, until I saw her. She was sitting behind the fountain, half hidden by the shadow of an old oak tree. A tiny girl, maybe 6 years old. Her hair was matted to her forehead, tangled and dull from dust. Her bare feet were gray with city grime. She wasn't begging, not even holding out her hand. She just sat there, hugging a one-eyed rag doll, as if it were the only thing she had left in the world. Something about her posture caught me. The way she curled her shoulders, the silent patience in her face. It wasn't just sadness, it was familiarity. I didn't know why, but my heart squeezed painfully. Then it happened. A couple walked by, laughing, and the woman dropped half a cookie. The piece landed near the girl's feet. She stared at it for a long time, her big brown eyes bright but hesitant. She looked around, like a wild animal afraid of being chased away, then crawled forward slowly. She picked up the cookie, brushed it carefully on her sleeve, and slipped it into the torn pocket of her coat. That simple motion, so cautious, so polite, stabbed straight through me. I threw away the melting ice cream I'd been holding and walked quickly to the bakery across the street. I bought 2 warm croissants and a small carton of chocolate milk. The smell of fresh bread hit me like a wave of home. When I came back, the girl hadn't moved. I knelt down, forcing a gentle smile. "Hey, sweetheart," I said softly, holding out the bag. "Here you go, fresh and warm." She flinched, her eyes wide and mistrustful. It was the kind of look you see in a child who's learned the world can bite. Her little fingers hesitated in her lap. And then, when her gaze lifted to meet mine, time stopped. Just above her right eyelid, there was a tiny mole, almost invisible unless the light hit it just right. My breath caught. That same mole had lived on my son Danny's eyelid since the day he was born. No, it couldn't be. My granddaughter was in Australia. She had parents, a home, a different life. This was impossible. My hands trembled as I pushed the bag toward her again. "Go on, honey. Take it." Her small, cold hand reached out, brushed mine, and in that instant she whispered, barely audible, "Grandma, is that really you?" The world seemed to fall silent. The fountain's murmur vanished, the street musicians faded. Even my own heartbeat went still. I pulled my hand back as if I'd touched fire. You must be mistaken, sweetheart. My granddaughter's in Australia." My voice cracked halfway through the sentence. But the child's eyes didn't waver. They were wide and pleading, filled with a kind of quiet hope that begged me not to walk away. I did anyway. I turned and hurried down the street, my heels clicking too loud on the pavement. I told myself it couldn't be true. It was a coincidence, a cruel trick of resemblance. Behind me, her voice followed, thin and trembling. "Grandma, don't go. Grandma." I kept walking. Then I heard the small slap of sandals running after me, the rhythm frantic, desperate. By the time I reached a narrow alley between souvenir shops, my chest was tight, my hands shaking. A tiny hand clutched the hem of my blouse. I stopped. The girl stood there, her chest rising and falling, with quick, shallow breaths. Her eyes were shining with tears. "Please," she whispered, "if you don't believe me, I can take you to my dad. You'll see." I looked down at her hand gripping my shirt, thin fingers, nails bitten to the skin. 1,000 thoughts collided inside me. Every instinct screamed run. Yet another voice, the voice that had sung lullabies long ago, whispered stay. I nodded. "Show me," I said. She led me away from the laughter and the light, down a dirt path by the river that tourists never saw. The air grew damp. A sour smell of garbage and mold crept in. My shoes slipped on the mud as the last sunlight disappeared under a wide concrete bridge. The girl's hand was ice cold, but she never let go. When we reached the shadows, I saw the outlines of cardboard, a threadbare blanket, empty bottles glinting like glass ghosts. It wasn't a place for a child. Before I could speak, the girl ran ahead. "Dad, look who I brought." A man was crouched by a pile of scrap metal, sorting through cans. His jacket was torn, his beard thick and uneven. His shoulders were narrow, his posture defeated. He didn't turn around immediately. "Lily," he said hoarsely, "how many times did I tell you not to bother people?" Lily. The name hit me like a lightning bolt. My granddaughter's name was Lily. The man straightened slowly and turned. Even under the grime, I knew that face, those tired blue eyes, that stubborn line of the jaw. "Danny," I whispered. He froze. The color drained from his face. For a moment he looked like he might run. Then his gaze dropped to the ground. "I'm sorry, ma'am," he murmured. "We don't have anything to give you. Please, just leave." My purse slipped from my fingers and hit the dirt with a dull thud. He was pretending not to know me, out of shame. I took one step forward, the smell of river water thick in the air. My legs were trembling, my throat closing. "Danny," I said again, my voice cracking. "What happened to you, son?" He flinched, as if the word son burned. His shoulders began to shake. Then, in one motion, he dropped to his knees, covered his face, and whispered, "Mom, I'm sorry. It's all my fault." The echo of his sobs bounced off the concrete walls. Lily, frightened, rushed to his side and clung to his arm. "Don't cry, Daddy. Grandma's here now. She'll help us." "Right, Grandma?" I sank onto a cold stone near them, unable to stand any longer. The ground was wet, but I didn't care. Before me sat the boy who used to laugh so loudly when I made his favorite chili. The same boy who'd once sworn he'd never come back, not even if he starved. And here he was, starving, shaking, hollow-eyed beneath a bridge. I wanted to reach out and touch his face, to wipe away the dirt, but my hands wouldn't move. Lily pressed against him, her tiny arm wrapped around his shoulders. Her doll dangled from her other hand, its remaining eye reflecting the faint light like a tear. In that moment, I felt both devastation and grace. Pain so sharp, it almost felt sacred. I had spent 3 years mourning my son as if he were dead, and now, by the cruel kindness of chance, I'd found him alive, but broken. The faint roar of the highway above us sounded like the pulse of fate itself, steady, indifferent, endless. I whispered, mostly to myself, "You're home now, Danny. Whatever this is, we'll fix it." He didn't answer, but his shoulders eased, just a little, as Lily leaned against him and closed her eyes. Under that bridge, with the river whispering and the city lights flickering beyond the concrete, I realized something I'd forgotten. Family doesn't vanish because of distance or pride. It hides, waiting for one act of courage to bring it back into the light. And that night, without knowing it, the fight for my family began again. It was a Saturday that had started soft and bright, the kind of day that smelled like cinnamon and second chances. In my kitchen in Chicago, the pot of chili was simmering, the way it always did when I wanted my son to come home. Danny's favorite. Ever since he was little, the scent of cumin and pork could pull him out of any bad mood. That afternoon, I hummed to the radio, chopping cilantro and thinking about the laughter that used to fill this house. His deep chuckle, Lily's tiny giggles echoing through the hallway. The sunlight spilled across the counter, glinting on the polished spoons. Everything felt almost right, until the front door slammed. The bang was so violent the wooden spoon slipped from my fingers and clattered to the floor. "Danny?" I called out. No answer, just the heavy, hurried rhythm of footsteps on the hardwood. Then he appeared in the doorway, his face hard, his eyes burning with something I didn't recognize. Behind him was Amber, her mascara smudged, a trembling hand clutching her purse. Something inside me twisted. "Mom," Danny said sharply, throwing his car keys on the dining table so hard they rattled. "We need to talk." My heart thudded. I wiped my hands on my apron. "What's wrong, sweetheart? Did something happen?" Amber sniffled, pressing a tissue to her lips. She looked up at him like a damsel in distress. I could already feel the storm forming before the first thunderclap. Danny's jaw flexed. "Stop pretending, Mom. Why are you talking about Amber to the neighbors? Why would you tell people she's lazy? That she wastes my money and doesn't take care of Lily?" I blinked, stunned. "What? Who told you that?" He didn't answer. The disappointment in his eyes hurt worse than any slap. I turned to Amber. "Honey, I've never—" Amber interrupted, her voice breaking just enough to sound believable. "I told you, Danny. Please don't make this worse. I can't live like this anymore. This morning, your mom wouldn't even let me take Lily to the park. She said it was a waste of gas." My breath caught. "That's not—" Danny's hand sliced the air. "Enough. You always have an excuse." His voice, once warm, was sharp as glass. I could still smell the chili bubbling behind me, sweet and heavy in the air. "I just said there's traffic on weekends, Amber," I whispered, trying to steady myself. "That's all." But Danny wasn't listening. His fists clenched. "Amber already told me everything. How you treat her, how you criticize her family, how you think she's beneath us. You even told someone that giving money to my wife is for idiots." It felt like every word struck a nail into my chest. "Danny," I whispered, "that's not true." He took a step closer, anger flushing his cheeks. "You've always had to control everything. My job, my money, my life. You couldn't stand the idea that I married someone who doesn't come from your world." My lips trembled. "I only ever wanted you to be happy, to be loved." "Well, congratulations," he snapped. "You've made sure that'll never happen." Amber touched his arm gently, playing her part perfectly. "Please, honey, let's not fight anymore. Maybe it's better if we just leave for a while." "Leave?" I repeated, barely hearing my own voice. Danny looked at me like I was a stranger. "From now on, I don't want you in my life. Even if I starve in the street, I'll never come back." The words landed like bullets. I stood frozen in the middle of my kitchen, surrounded by the smell of chili that suddenly made me sick. He turned away. Upstairs, I heard the closet doors slam open, drawers yanked out, zippers rasping. I followed them, my legs weak. Amber was already packing, shoving clothes into a suitcase. Lily sat on the bed, clutching her doll, crying softly. "Danny, please," I said, stepping into the room. "Don't do this. Talk to me." He didn't even look up. "Dad, where are we going?" Lily whimpered. "I don't want to go." Amber avoided my eyes, tossing another handful of shirts into the case. "We'll talk later, sweetheart," she muttered. Danny zipped the suitcase and lifted it off the bed. He brushed past me without a word. Downstairs, the air was thick with the smell of chili and heartbreak. The pot hissed on the stove, forgotten. "Danny," I called after him. "Please, just look at me." He didn't. He opened the front door, the afternoon sunlight spilling in like a final judgment. "Goodbye, Mom," he said flatly, his voice breaking on the word. The door slammed. The sound echoed through the house long after they were gone. The days that followed blurred into each other like rain sliding down glass. I kept expecting the phone to ring, to hear him say, "I'm sorry, Mom," or "We just needed space." But there was nothing. I called him, voicemail. I sent messages, no reply. I visited his friends, his workplace, even the daycare Lily used to go to. No one knew where he was. Each night I cooked chili out of habit, setting the table for 3. Then I'd sit alone, staring at the empty chairs until the food went cold. The silence became a living thing in that house, creeping through every room, curling around me like smoke. One night, I was cleaning up when my phone buzzed. The screen lit up with a number I recognized immediately. Amber. My heart leapt. I wiped my hands, fumbling to open the message. "Don't contact us anymore. We're moving to Australia. Danny doesn't want a mother like you. Forget us." I read it twice, 3 times, then dropped the phone. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. I sank to the floor, the tile cold against my knees. That was the night I realized I'd truly lost my son. Not to death, but to something worse. To lies. Years later, when I found him under that bridge, those words came back to me like an echo from hell. "Even if I starve in the street, I'll never come back." He had said it with so much pride, so much defiance, and he had kept his promise. I remember sitting in that empty kitchen after they left, the chili growing darker, thicker, burning at the bottom of the pot. I didn't even bother to turn off the stove right away. The smell filled the house, sweet, smoky, suffocating. I told myself he'd come back once Amber's temper cooled. I told myself she'd realize family mattered more than pride. But weeks turned to months, and the house stayed silent. The only thing I kept was Lily's little pink dress. I washed it once a month, folded it neatly, and put it in the closet, like a prayer I was too afraid to say out loud. Sometimes I would wake in the middle of the night, convinced I'd heard the front door open, that small footsteps were running down the hall. I'd get up, heart pounding, only to find the hallway empty, the moonlight lying cold on the floor. It's strange how you can live surrounded by ghosts that are still alive. Every object in that house, Danny's old baseball glove, the family photo on the fridge, Lily's forgotten crayon under the sofa, became a reminder of what I'd lost. People told me to move on, to forgive. But forgiveness is easy when you don't have to eat dinner at a table meant for 3. The truth is, part of me never stopped waiting. So when I saw that little girl in Savannah, the one with the one-eyed doll and the mole above her eyelid, I didn't just recognize her face. I recognized my own failure staring back at me. That's what made me freeze. That's what made me run. Because deep down, I knew. The past I tried to bury had finally found me again. The air under the bridge was thick and wet, heavy with the smell of rust and river silt. Danny sat across from me on a pile of cardboard, his hands trembling as he wiped Lily's dirty face with the torn sleeve of his jacket. The girl leaned against him, silent now, her doll hanging limp in her arms. I wanted to speak, to say I'm sorry, or how did this happen? But the words were caught somewhere in my throat, burning. Finally, I managed, "Danny, what happened to you, son?" He didn't answer right away. His eyes darted toward the shadows, as if ashamed of the daylight sneaking in through the cracks above us. When he finally looked at me, his voice was hoarse and small. "She was right, Mom," he whispered. "Amber. She said we were going to Australia. That's what I believed." He ran a hand through his tangled hair, then exhaled shakily. "She said she had an old friend there, a guy in construction who could get us work, help us start a new life. I thought it was a sign, you know. a way to fix everything I ruined. His words cracked open the silence like glass. She asked me to sign some papers, he continued, staring at his hands. She said it was just to help with the embassy paperwork, to prove we had financial stability. I didn't even read them. I trusted her. He laughed, a dry, bitter sound. God, I was so stupid. I felt my stomach tighten. Authorization papers, financial proof. Even without reading them, I could already see the shape of the trap. And then, I asked, my voice barely more than a whisper. I sold the truck, he said, still not looking at me. The one we bought together. Remember that old Ford you and Dad helped me fix up? I sold it for next to nothing. I withdrew everything from my savings, every dollar. His hands clenched into fists. I gave it all to her, Mom. Every cent. I could feel the blood drain from my face. The same son who once mocked me for worrying too much about his marriage was now sitting in rags under a bridge because of it. She told me it was for the tickets, for the visas, for a house deposit. I didn't question anything. He paused, swallowing hard. A week before the flight, I got a letter in the mail, a court notice. He turned to me, his voice trembling. Amber had filed for divorce. And in the complaint, she accused me of abuse. The words slammed into me like a physical blow. Abuse? I gasped. You? Danny? You never even raised your voice at anyone. He nodded slowly, eyes glassy. The court believed her. I didn't have money for a lawyer, not after she cleaned me out. Everything, every asset, every account, was under her name because of that authorization paper I signed. She planned it, Mom, from the start. I pressed a shaking hand to my mouth. The bridge around us seemed to close in, the sound of cars above replaced by the roaring in my ears. Lily tugged at my sleeve. Her little voice trembled. Dad never hit Mommy, Grandma. Never. I put an arm around her, my throat tightening. I know, sweetheart. I know. Danny took a shaky breath. I thought it was just a misunderstanding, that once we got to the airport, she'd explain everything. I kept believing that, even when she told me to pack only a small bag. She said she'd take care of the luggage. He gave a hollow laugh. I should have known then. I didn't interrupt. I couldn't. She had all the passports, he went on. The money, the tickets. We got to the airport early. Lily was holding her doll, so excited she could barely sit still. Amber kissed her on the forehead, smiled at me, and said, "Wait here while I check in the bags." He paused, rubbing his temples. We waited an hour, then 2. They called for the final boarding. I tried calling her phone. It was off. When I went to the counter, the attendant said she'd already boarded. For a moment, no one breathed. She left us there, I whispered, almost to myself. Danny nodded slowly. Just walked onto that plane and never looked back. He stared into the distance, his voice fading. Lily fell asleep in my lap, clutching her doll. I just sat there, frozen. I didn't know what to do. I could almost see it, the harsh airport lights, the loudspeaker echoing flight numbers, my son sitting there with a child and no home to return to. The next day, Danny continued, she called me from a blocked number. I thought maybe she'd realized her mistake. I answered before the first ring even ended. He swallowed hard. She laughed, said, "See? You were an idiot for doubting me and believing that old hag. This is what you get for your stupidity." Then she hung up. He lowered his head into his hands. That voice still haunts me. The sound of the river filled the silence between us. I reached out and placed my hand on his shoulder. She took everything from you, Danny, but she didn't take who you are. He shook his head. You don't understand, Mom. After that, we had nothing. I tried to rent a room, but I had no ID. She'd kept all the documents. Without papers, you're invisible. I went to construction sites, asked for day work. They turned me away. His eyes filled with tears. That first night, Lily and I slept on a park bench. It rained. I used my jacket to cover her, but she still shivered all night. She kept whispering for her mother, and I couldn't even give her an answer. I bit my lip until I tasted blood. "Why didn't you call me?" I asked, my voice shaking. I would have come in a heartbeat. He looked at me then, and what I saw in his eyes was worse than guilt. It was shame. "I almost did," he admitted. "I found a payphone once. I even had a coin in my hand. But then I remembered what I said that day. Even if I starve, I'll never come back. I couldn't face you. I couldn't face how wrong I'd been." His voice broke. "I thought you'd hate me." I took his rough, calloused hand in mine. It was scarred, blistered from collecting scrap metal and aluminum cans. "Danny, listen to me," I said softly. "There's nothing you could ever do to make me stop loving you. You're my son. You'll always be my son." He started crying again, quietly this time, shoulders shaking as Lily leaned into him. "There were nights she had a fever," he said, voice raw. "I couldn't take her to a doctor. I didn't have the money. I just soaked a rag in the river and put it on her forehead. I prayed all night. I thought I was going to lose her." I reached forward and hugged them both, the three of us wrapped in the sound of water dripping from the bridge above. "You did everything you could," I whispered into his hair. "You didn't abandon her. You fought for her the only way you knew how." He nodded weakly, wiping his face with the back of his hand. "A homeless man named Frank showed us this spot," he said. "Said at least it wouldn't flood when it rained. Every morning, I'd leave Lily with an old woman who sold lottery tickets near the pier. She'd keep an eye on her while I collected cans. When I got lucky, I bought milk. When I didn't, we shared stale bread." He looked at Lily and smiled faintly. She never complained. She'd just hug her doll and say, "Tomorrow will be better, Daddy." My throat tightened. That small, innocent hope, the one thing he couldn't protect her from losing, had somehow kept them both alive. The light was fading now, and a cold wind blew through the bridge. I stood and reached for Danny's arm. "Come on," I said quietly. "You're coming home." He hesitated. "Mom, I can't. After everything I said to you, I don't deserve it." I took his hand and squeezed it tight. "You don't need to deserve home, Danny. You just need to come back to it." He looked at me for a long moment, and then something in his eyes softened. A flicker of the boy I once knew. Behind him, Lily clutched her doll and whispered, "Grandma, can we really go home?" "Yes, sweetheart," I said, my voice breaking. "No more bridges, no more cold nights." The river murmured below us, as if it too had been holding its breath. We gathered their few things, blanket, bag, doll, and started walking toward the city lights. The highway hummed overhead, a low, steady promise of motion and change. Every step felt like crossing back from death into life. I didn't know what waited for us in Chicago, or how we'd rebuild what Amber had destroyed. But as Lily's tiny hand slipped into mine, and Danny walked beside me, silent and humbled, I realized something had shifted. Pride had nearly killed us. Love had found us again. And under that bridge, in the damp, dark heart of the city, the truth had finally come home. When I brought Danny and Lily back to Chicago, the city looked different. Maybe it was just me. How grief changes your eyes. But the skyline, once sharp and cold, felt softer that night, wrapped in a fog that made the lights look like they were breathing. I parked in front of the old bakery, Nana Mae's Sweets. The faded sign still hung above the door, the same one my late husband painted 30 years ago. For years I had come here every morning, unlocking the doors at dawn, kneading dough to the rhythm of memory. But since Danny left, the ovens had gone cold. Now, standing there again with them beside me, one grown man and one trembling little girl clutching her doll, I fumbled with the keys like it was my first day. Danny hesitated at the step. "Mom, maybe we shouldn't—" I turned to him, eyes shining in the streetlight. "This is your home, Danny. It always was. He looked down, ashamed. Lily tugged at his sleeve. "Daddy, can we go inside? It smells like cookies." Her voice was small, hopeful. That was enough. He nodded. I pushed the door open, and the warm scent of sugar and cinnamon drifted out. Faint, but still there, like the soul of the place had been waiting for us to come back. Inside, dust danced in the air like silver snow. The shelves were empty. The counter still bore faint flour marks, and the big glass jars were nothing but ghosts of what used to be. Lily ran her finger over one of them and whispered, "Grandma, you used to sell candy in here?" I smiled. "Yes, sweetheart. Candy, cupcakes, and smiles." Her eyes widened. "I like smiles." That simple sentence broke me a little. Danny walked through the kitchen slowly, trailing his hand over the old mixer. "It hasn't changed," he said quietly. "Not one bit." "It waited for you," I replied. He looked up, startled. "What?" "This place," I said. "It's been waiting for you to come home and make it alive again." He didn't answer, but his jaw tightened, his throat working like he was swallowing something too hard to say. The first night back, I drew a hot bath for Lily. The water steamed, curling into the chilly air. When she stepped into the tub, she gasped and then giggled, pressing her hands into the bubbles. "Warm water feels so good, Grandma," she whispered, closing her eyes. I knelt beside her, washing her hair gently, wiping away the city grime that clung to her skin. The soap turned gray, but underneath was the soft pink of childhood that had almost been lost. When I wrapped her in a towel, she smelled like vanilla and clean linen. She looked around my old guest room, the one I had painted yellow when Danny was little, and whispered, "It's like sunshine in here." I smiled through tears. That's exactly what it's supposed to be. I opened the closet and pulled out something I had kept for 3 years. A pink dress, brand new, never worn. I had bought it after their last visit, believing they'd come back soon. It still had the tag. I held it out to her. "This was waiting for you." Her eyes went wide. "For me?" "For you." When she put it on, it fit perfectly. She twirled in front of the mirror, the skirt spinning like a rose. Danny stood in the doorway, his hands shoved deep into his pockets, his eyes shining. "She looks like a princess," he murmured. "No," I said softly, watching them both. "She looks like hope." Dinner that night was chilly. Of course it was. The same recipe, the same pot, the same smell that had once driven my son away. But this time, the air around that table was different. Lily sat between us, giggling as she tried to spoon chili into her mouth without spilling. "It's spicy but happy," she declared, making us both laugh. Danny smiled shyly at me, the way he used to when he was 10. "It tastes exactly how I remember it." I met his eyes. Maybe it always did. He looked down, stirring his bowl. "I'm sorry, Mom, for everything." I reached across the table and touched his hand. "You already said that. Now we move forward." For a moment, the kitchen was quiet except for the ticking clock and the sound of Lily humming a tune I didn't know. It was the first time in years that house had known peace. The next morning, Danny woke before sunrise. I found him in the bakery kitchen, sleeves rolled up, trying to fix the old dough mixer. His hair was tied back with a rubber band, his hands white with flour. "Couldn't sleep?" I asked, leaning on the doorway. He grinned sheepishly. "Guess not. This thing still works, but the motor's slow. I can replace it." I smiled. "You always were good with your hands." He shrugged. "Guess I'll put them to use." That week, he worked harder than I'd ever seen him. He scrubbed the walls, repainted the shelves, polished the display case until it gleamed. Lily followed him everywhere, humming, holding a paintbrush she barely used. At night, after she fell asleep, Danny and I would sit in the kitchen with mugs of cocoa, the air thick with the smell of sugar and vanilla. He started talking more, about the people who helped him on the streets, about how he'd learned to make small things with his hands, wooden toys to sell by the river. "You built your own survival," I told him one night. "Now build something better." He nodded. "I want to, for her." 2 weeks later, Nana Mae's Sweets reopened. We started small, just cookies, pies, and jars of homemade candy. But this time, Danny did something new. He brought out his old laptop, long forgotten in a closet, and said, "Mom, we need to tell our story." He set up a website with bright photos of Lily frosting cupcakes, of me kneading dough, of him fixing a tray. He added a tagline beneath the logo, "Baked with second chances." When I saw it, my chest tightened. We took pictures of the shop, hung fairy lights in the window, and by the end of the week, the first online orders started coming in, then dozens more. Danny handled everything: shipping, packaging, social media. "People love stories, Mom," he said. "They just need a reason to believe in them." And somehow, they did. One morning, as I was packing boxes, a notification pinged on his phone. He laughed. "Mom, look, a customer from Canada wants 20 jars of caramel drops," I gasped. "Canada?" He grinned. "Guess your chili isn't the only thing that crosses borders." That night, we celebrated with warm cocoa and Lily's favorite chocolate muffins. She danced around the shop in her pink dress, her laughter echoing against the glass. When she ran into my arms, I lifted her, spinning her until she squealed. "Grandma," she said breathlessly, "are we happy now?" I kissed her forehead. "Yes, my love, we are." From across the counter, Danny watched us, his eyes bright with something deeper than joy, something like peace. He came over and hugged us both. "I don't know how to thank you," he whispered, "for not giving up on me." I smiled through tears. That's what mothers do. We hold the light, even when no one can see it. As the night deepened, I stepped outside the bakery. The city was quiet. In the window behind me, the glow from the shop looked warm and golden, spilling out onto the street like a heartbeat. Through the glass, I saw Danny wiping the counter, Lily asleep on the chair beside him, her doll tucked under her arm. For the first time in years, everything felt right. Not perfect, never perfect, but alive again. Home wasn't just four walls or a roof. It was forgiveness, needed and baked into something new. And in that small corner of Chicago, surrounded by sugar, light, and second chances, I realized our story wasn't over. It had only just begun. It had been 3 months since we reopened Nana Mae's Sweets. The shop had become more than a bakery. It was a heartbeat. Every morning, the smell of sugar and butter rolled out into the street like a warm promise. Children stopped by for cookies after school. Neighbors waved through the window, and our online orders kept doubling. Danny smiled again. Lily giggled again. And for the first time in years, I allowed myself to believe the storm was over. I should have known better, because storms don't die. They circle back when the sky looks safest. It began on a quiet Thursday. I was icing a tray of lemon bars when the doorbell chimed. Danny went to the front, and for a heartbeat, everything froze. Standing in the doorway, framed by the morning light, was Amber Lawson. She wore dark sunglasses and a crisp white coat, her hair blown out perfectly, her nails gleaming. She looked like a magazine ad, perfectly curated, perfectly poisonous. "Hello, Daniel," she said, her voice sugary and cruel. "You look better fed than I expected." Lily, who had been coloring behind the counter, gasped and ducked behind me. Her tiny hands clutched the hem of my apron. Danny's shoulders stiffened. "What are you doing here, Amber?" "I'm here," she said, lowering her glasses, "to get back what's mine." The word mine cut through the air like a blade. We sat around the counter, the three of us on one side, Amber on the other. She crossed her legs, smiling like a lawyer who'd already won. "This bakery," she said, "the brand, the story, it all uses my daughter's image, doesn't it?" Those pictures online, the pink dress, the little doll, you never asked permission. Danny clenched his jaw. You lost the right to call her your daughter the day you abandoned her at an airport. Amber tilted her head. A judge might disagree. I stepped forward, voice shaking but steady. You're not welcome here, Amber. Leave before I call the police. She laughed, the kind of laugh that made your skin crawl. Oh, Evelyn, still so dramatic. I'm not here to steal cookies. I'm here to reclaim family property. Half of whatever Daniel owns is still legally mine. That's not true, Danny snapped. Prove it. She stood, brushed imaginary dust off her sleeve, and leaned close to him. You think you can erase me? You and your mother bake a few pies, post a sob story online, and suddenly you're saints? Please. Then, as she walked out, she whispered just loud enough for us to hear. Let's see what an old woman and a homeless man can do when the internet turns on them. That night, it began. The first fake review appeared before midnight. By morning, there were dozens. Bought cookies for my kid. She got sick. Beware of unsanitary shop. Owner uses child labor. Disgusting. They lie about being a family business. Criminal record incoming. Each one hit like a punch to the chest. Danny tried to laugh it off. It'll pass, he said, typing replies, deleting spam. But his hands shook. By noon, a YouTube video appeared. A woman crying in front of a hospital bed, holding a candy jar with our label. The caption screamed, "Local bakery poisons children. Mother demands justice." It wasn't even subtle. The woman was an actress, the setting fake. But to the internet, truth doesn't matter when drama tastes better. Orders vanished overnight. 2 wholesale partners froze their contracts. The phone rang every hour, angry voices, threats, even reporters. By the second evening, someone threw eggs at the front door. The smell of rot clung to the glass. I found Danny sitting on the floor of the kitchen, head in his hands, the light from the fridge painting his face pale. I can't do this again, Mom, he whispered. We were just starting to stand. I can't lose Lily's home again. I knelt beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. We're not running this time. We fight. He looked up, eyes hollow. Fight how? Against who? She has money, lawyers, reach. We have a few cupcakes and a good story. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I walked to the back of the pantry and pulled out a small wooden box, the one my late husband used to keep old receipts and emergency cash. Inside, beneath faded papers, was a business card. I held it up. We have this. Danny squinted. Who's Bob Whitaker? A friend of your father's, I said quietly. Retired investigator. He's helped small businesses fight fraud before. Danny frowned. Mom, that was years ago. I smiled faintly. So were we. I dialed the number. It still worked. Whitaker, a deep voice answered. Bob, I said, my heart pounding. It's Evelyn Carter. We need help. 2 days later, Bob Whitaker walked through our bakery door, trench coat and all, looking like justice in worn leather shoes. Beside him was Lucy Herrera, a sharp young attorney he'd mentored. They listened quietly as Danny told the whole story, from the bridge to the bakery, to the fake reviews, and Amber's threats. When he finished, Lucy flipped through her notebook. This isn't just defamation, she said. It's malicious intent. She's orchestrating a smear campaign for financial gain. Bob nodded. We'll start by tracing her digital footprint. Every post leaves fingerprints. Danny blinked. You can really prove it's her? Oh, sweetheart, Lucy said with a smile. People like her always leave a trail. They think being loud makes them invisible. While they worked, the storm outside grew wilder. A local blogger posted an article titled, Grandma's Sweets Exposed, The Dark Truth. Amber appeared in public, crying for cameras, pretending to be a wronged ex-wife fighting for custody. Reporters camped near the shop. Lily had to stop going to school for a week. She would press her face against the bakery window and whisper, "Why do people hate us, Grandma? We make cookies." I had no answer that would fit into a 6-year-old's world. But every storm burns itself out eventually, and ours began to crack when Lucy found the first thread: an IP address, a payment trail, a receipt showing Amber had wired money to a freelance reputation manager. "She's paying people to destroy you," Lucy said, sliding the papers across the table. Danny stared at the proof. "She's buying hate." Bob leaned forward, his eyes fierce. "And we're about to turn her own spotlight against her." That night, I cleaned the bakery while the city slept. The silence was heavy, but I felt something stirring underneath it. Not fear, not despair. Something stronger. I thought about the last time I'd seen Amber at the door, her smirk dripping with arrogance. The way she had looked down on us, on the son she'd broken, on the child she'd abandoned, on the woman she'd tried to humiliate. She believed the internet could bury us, but she forgot one thing. Truth rises like yeast. It may take time, but it always lifts. A week later, the shop was still quiet, but Bob and Lucy promised we were close. That morning, Danny sat at the counter, staring at the dead phone screen. "Maybe we should close for good," he muttered. "Let her have what she wants." I walked up behind him, set a mug of cocoa down, and said, "Your father used to say the same thing about every storm we faced. You know what he'd do next?" Danny shook his head. "He'd grab his coat," I said, smiling faintly, "and go fix the roof." Danny stared at me for a moment, then slowly smiled. He stood up, rolled his sleeves, and went to the kitchen. "Let's bake," he said. That afternoon, the smell of cookies once again filled the air. A few customers came in, curious, cautious, but when they left smiling. Outside, someone had thrown another egg earlier. I wiped it off the door and whispered to myself, "Let them throw what they want. We'll keep shining." Because I knew something Amber never would. You can smear glass, but sunlight always finds a way through. The morning of the trial rose cold and bright over Chicago. The city's skyline shimmered against a pale blue sky, but inside me, the same storm that had haunted our family for years was swirling again. I stood in front of the mirror, fastening the small silver brooch my late husband had given me decades ago. It wasn't just jewelry, it was armor. Behind me, on the couch, Lily slept curled up with her doll, the same one that had followed her through every dark place we'd survived. I kissed her forehead softly. "Sleep, my love. When you wake, the monsters will be gone." The courthouse loomed gray and solemn, its marble steps glistening with early frost. Inside, cameras flashed, reporters whispered, and the air buzzed with that electric mix of curiosity and cruelty only the media can create. Amber Lawson sat at the defendant's table, immaculate as ever. Navy suit, hair in a perfect bun, a soft smirk painted on her lips. She looked more like a celebrity than a mother who'd abandoned her child and destroyed lives. Across from her, I sat between Danny and our lawyer, Lucy Herrera. Mr. Whitaker was right behind us, notebook in hand. Every line on his face carved by years of justice earned the hard way. Danny's hands trembled in his lap. I reached over and covered them with mine. "Stay calm, son. Truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs time." He nodded, eyes glassy but determined. The trial began. Amber's attorney, a man with slicked hair and a smile too practiced, stood first. He painted a portrait of tragedy and deceit, a poor woman abandoned by her abusive husband, forced overseas, now returning only to reclaim her child and what was rightfully hers. The room buzzed with sympathetic murmurs. A few reporters nodded along, pens scratching. When Amber took the stand, she dabbed fake tears from the corners of her eyes. "I left because I was scared," she said in a trembling voice. "Danny, he wasn't the man I married anymore. He yelled, broke things, scared our little girl. I just wanted to protect her. Danny's jaw tightened. His knuckles whitened on the edge of the table. I could feel his heart breaking beside me all over again. Her lawyer leaned forward. And the bakery? The business you helped build? Amber sighed dramatically. It was our dream. I just want what's fair. Half. Half. Half of the bakery she'd tried to burn down with lies. Half of the life she'd already stolen once. I wanted to shout, but Lucy gently placed her hand on my arm, signaling me to wait. Let her dig her own grave, she whispered. When it was our turn, Lucy stood. Her presence was quiet power. No theatrics, no raised voice. Just truth, lined in steel. Your Honor, she began, we are here today because of lies. Lies told in the courtroom 3 years ago, and lies spread across the internet in the past few months. But today, those lies end. She walked toward the center, holding a stack of documents. These, she said, are the safety certifications of Nana Mae Suites, renewed yearly, inspected by the Chicago Department of Health. Not once, not once, has there been a single report of contamination or complaint. She lifted another paper. And this, she continued, is a statement from Dr. Peterson of Mercy Hospital. The child featured in the viral video that sparked public outrage was never poisoned. He was admitted for an asthma attack. The woman who filmed that video, Lucy turned, pointing directly at Amber, was a friend of the defendant. She received payment for her performance. The courtroom murmured. Cameras clicked. Amber's composure cracked for the first time. Lucy wasn't finished. We also have evidence of a coordinated smear campaign. Over 40 fake online accounts traced to the same IP address registered in Savannah, Georgia. That location, Your Honor, is tied to an internet cafe where this woman, again, Lucy pointed at Amber, was caught on security footage posting defamatory content. A gasp rippled through the audience. Reporters scribbled furiously. Amber's lawyer tried to interrupt, but the judge raised a hand. Order. Lucy walked back to our table, picked up one final document, and held it up for all to see. This, she said softly, is the original voluntary agreement signed by Amber Lawson 3 years ago, stating she relinquished all claim to Mr. Daniel Carter's present and future assets in exchange for receiving full financial settlement at the time of divorce. She paused, letting the words sink in. Her signature is verified and notarized. Amber's eyes widened. She shook her head slightly. That's fake. Lucy smiled faintly. It's on file with the Savannah courthouse. We pulled the certified copy ourselves. The judge leaned forward, scanning the document. Counsel, this is a binding contract. It nullifies your client's claims entirely. Amber's lawyer began to stammer something about emotional damages, but it was too late. The silence in the room had shifted. The same reporters who once feasted on our suffering now turned their lenses on her. Lucy delivered the final blow. Your Honor, she said, her voice steady as stone. We move to file a counterclaim against Amber Lawson for defamation, fraud, and child abandonment under State Statute 705. In addition, we request that full custody of minor Lily Carter remain permanently with her father, Daniel Carter, and her legal guardian, Evelyn Carter. Danny gripped my hand. His breath trembled, but his eyes were steady now. Amber's mask shattered completely. She stood, voice shrill. You can't do this to me. I'm her mother. I gave birth to her. The judge struck the gavel once, the sound echoing through the chamber. Sit down, Mrs. Lawson. When she didn't, 2 bailiffs moved forward. She froze, then slowly sank back into her seat, her face pale as chalk. The judge deliberated briefly, then spoke in a voice calm and final. This court finds in favor of the plaintiffs, Daniel and Evelyn Carter. The defendants' claims for custody and property are denied. Furthermore, the court recognizes sufficient evidence to proceed with the counterclaim for defamation and damages. Custody of the minor, Lily Carter, shall remain with her father. The gavel struck again. It was over. Amber covered her face with shaking hands as cameras flashed around her. Her lawyer tried to usher her out, but the reporters swarmed, shouting questions she didn't answer. Danny just sat there, frozen. It was as if he couldn't process what he'd heard. Then, slowly, his hands came to his face, and he began to cry. Not from sorrow this time, but from something deeper. Release. I wrapped my arms around him. "It's done, son," I whispered. "She can't hurt us anymore." Outside the courthouse, the sunlight was blinding. The air was cold but alive, crisp with the smell of roasted chestnuts from a street vendor nearby. Reporters followed us down the steps, asking questions. But for once, their tone wasn't cruel. It was curious, even warm. Mrs. Mary, our old neighbor, was waiting near the bottom. She hurried up and grabbed my hands. "Evelyn, I saw the news. We're all so sorry for believing those lies. You and your boy didn't deserve any of it." I smiled, tears spilling freely. "It's all right, Mary. Truth always finds its way home." That evening, we reopened the bakery, not for business, but for family. Rosa, John, a few neighbors, and even Lucy and Mr. Whitaker came by. The lights glowed soft and golden. The scent of caramel and vanilla filled every corner. Danny moved behind the counter again, sleeves rolled, face still red from crying, but peaceful. Lily danced between the tables, wearing her pink dress, laughing as she sprinkled powdered sugar over cookies. "Grandma," she called, waving a cookie in the air. "This one's shaped like a heart." I smiled, taking it from her tiny hand. "It's perfect, sweetheart, just like today." When the last guests left, I stood alone in the quiet bakery. Outside, the street was washed in moonlight. Inside, the glow from the oven made the walls shimmer like honey. I looked at the framed photo on the counter. Me, Danny, and Lily, taken just last week, all smiling. For years, I had feared that our story would end in shame and silence. Instead, it had become light, bright, steady, unstoppable. I whispered to the empty room, "You see, love, we made it." And for the first time in a very long while, I could almost swear I heard my late husband's voice again, soft and proud, floating through the air. "Told you, Evie, light always comes back." I turned off the lights one by one, leaving only the glow of the oven behind. It flickered warmly, like a heart still beating in the dark.